7:30.
Yep. All right. I'll let you know. I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order on Tuesday, February 8th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber and via Zoom teleconference, which meeting link can be found on the agenda and on the city's website calendar. The prayer will be offered by City Clerk Susan Lovering, and Alderwoman at Large Gloria Timmons will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty of managing the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's start the meeting by taking attendance. We don't need roll call, right, Madam Clerk? We have a full house.
Alderman O'Brien,
Present.
Alderman Sullivan,
I'm here.
Alderman Clee,
Here.
Alderman Moran,
Present.
Alderman Lopez,
Here.
Alderman Jettie,
Here.
Alderman Clemmons,
Here.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Here.
Alderman Camone,
Present.
Alderman Dow,
Present.
Alderman Govea,
Here.
Alderman Kathy,
Present.
Alderman Tebow,
Here.
Alderwoman Timmons,
Here.
Alderman Wiltshire.
Here.
There are 15 physically in attendance.
Also in attendance this evening is Mayor Jim Donchis and Corporation Counsel Steve Bolton. Mayor, did you wish to address the board this evening?
Yes, Madam President, I do.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I wanted, again, as I have been doing over the last number of meetings, couple of years, give you the latest COVID numbers, but let me make clear first what I'm giving you. I tell you about the hospital statistics every time. We get these numbers directly from the hospitals. We have a weekly call. They go through their census and they tell us how many COVID patients they have. So if you wonder about the accuracy of those numbers, talk to the hospitals because that's where we're getting the information. When it comes to the other COVID numbers, we're getting those from the state of New Hampshire. We are not tabulating, we're not counting, we are not massaging. We get these directly from the state of New Hampshire. So if you think they're not accurate, please contact Concord. Now, what we have this week is still numbers that are high, but not certainly they're a lot better than they were a few weeks ago. In terms of hospitalization, we have 20 people hospitalized in the two hospitals. Now, we've seen in the last month, 6 weeks, there were 70 people. So now it's only 20, which is good, but relatively good, but certainly not as good as it was over the summer. Alderman Comeau asked about primary diagnosis. I did ask that question of the hospitals. And it's an interesting question. They say that it is very hard to sort that out because oftentimes people come in reporting something other than COVID. Stomach ailment, a heart problem, other things. But in the end, the ultimate diagnosis is that even a heart issue, a stomach issue, is caused by COVID. So it's very hard to kind of determine, sort it out. But it is because we have gotten numbers on the same standard for months and months. The fact that we have 20 now is better than 70 a few weeks back, and it's not as good as 5 over the summer. So we know that the hospitals are less stressed than they were. Now, they still have FEMA people in both of the hospitals as well as National Guard because they have had trouble staffing, keeping themselves staffed with the COVID patients, with their other patients, with staff shortages and and people leaving the profession. You know, there are just a lot of issues that the hospitals have. So that gives you some insight, I hope, about the hospitals. In terms of COVID, over the last 2 weeks, 974 cases have been reported in Nashua. A lot of cases, but a lot better than several weeks ago when that number was up around 3,000. During the summer months, it was down in the low, double digits over 2 weeks. Not a particular big number of cases, but it is coming down rather dramatically, and that's, of course, very good news. Still, a lot more than we'd like. There are currently 406 active cases, and the positivity rate over the last 7 days on average has been 14%. Too high, but again, it was 28 a few weeks ago. So 14 is relatively good. We're looking forward to it coming down further. And Bobby Bagley, of course, is constantly working, and Kim Bernard on this issue. On another medical subject, I wanted to mention that AMR announced today that they are beginning a program here in Nashua called, that enables people to become EMTs. They will pay people to go through the EMT program. And which will further and expand the number of EMTs, which we desperately need. And they're paying people, and they will then take them to be EMTs once they're educated. It's like a 10 to 12 week program. It's pretty expensive for AMR, but they are also focusing and trying to get as many Nashua people into the program as they possibly can. They've previously done this in Manchester. Now they're doing it in Nashua. AMR has been serving the city for a long, long time and have done a really good job, and this hopefully will help us strengthen our medical community. On another subject, Madam President, Matt Sullivan is in the room here. I think you're all familiar with him. He's currently the planning director. I have nominated him, subject to your confirmation, to become community development director, the job previously held by Sarah Marchant. We had an interview committee, interviewed 4 or 5 people, including Matt, most of the others from out of state, but the committee was unanimous in suggesting that Matt would be the strongest applicant. We know he's done a very good job as planning director, works very well with the planning board, chair of the planning board, thinks he does a very good job. In addition, we've gotten good citizen feedback, and I personally have thought he's done an excellent job. So I'll be nominating him. Of course, this will get referred to the Personnel Committee, and you will, I assume, next time you meet, you will interview him to the extent you think that's you'd like to. I also wanted to mention something, Madam President, concerning downtown. We have an environment down here where retailers can succeed. And we've seen it with a number of new businesses, new restaurants, but the most recent one, which has now been with us for several months, is Casanova, which is a men's boutique near where Jaja Bell's is. They're doing very well. Kate Dagianas, a Nashua person, is the proprietor, the owner of that business. And I went in, I got a shirt, cost only $98. It was really a good deal. It looks great. And I hope that you all will consider patronizing it. We've seen Camaraderie, we've seen Empinelli's, the Raja, a lot of new businesses are opening and they seem to be doing very well. We're seeking to build, of course, I'm sure you agree, a stronger, healthier economy for the city, including downtown. The stronger the businesses are downtown, in the long run, the stronger tax base we will have. Other than that, Madam President, I think I've concluded. But of course, if anybody does have questions, I'm certainly available.
Thank you, Mayor. This response to the remarks by the mayor. Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to also speak highly of Casanova. I bought a sweater there, It wasn't $98, but they didn't have it because of supply chain. But Kate, the CEO, was in constant contact, and I just got the email today that the sweater is in. So I'm sure we have good taste in clothing, so nice job.
Further responses to the remarks of the mayor? Alderman Kathy.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Mayor, I have two questions. One would be, have the hospitals talked about a plan to increase the staffing or how the city could help in that way? Because I know that they have been struggling over the past some months to get staffing. Have you guys talked in depth about that, or has that not been on the table?
They, several weeks ago, we had more of rather than the regular meeting, an emergency meeting really, and they asked what could the city do to help them. So what we lined up was the police and fire departments both agreed that they would provide, they could get volunteers to come on a detail rate basis. And we offered that to the hospitals. But in the interim, they reported that they had less employees on quarantine or isolation, so that helped. And they got these FEMA people. The FEMA people are actually paramedics,
Okay.
so that's very helpful. And they got the National Guard. So in the end, although the police and fire departments were both very helpful in sort of making this a possibility, in the end, the hospitals have not called on us to provide people on that basis.
Okay, great. My second question would be, if people wanted more information about the AMR, EMT, could they just go to the website, or is there a better way to look up that information?
I don't know if it's on their website. I think just call them, you know, especially if they'd like to apply. They're looking for applicants. Chris Stawaz is one of the people that's very familiar here in the city, and he could provide, I'm sure, all the information. There was a press thing today, and he was there.
Okay,
Very well known in Nashua.
thank you.
I did see that on the news tonight. I thought that was pretty interesting. They pay you to learn, and pretty good deal. Anyone else? Alderman Jettie.
Yeah, I thank the mayor for supporting downtown business. I heard that inflation was going up. I think $98 is what I paid for the last suit that I bought. But, I'm looking
Is that the
forward to
one
seeing
you've got on? I
it.
don't know.
Okay, moving on. Recognition period.
There's none.
Reading minutes of previous meetings.
None.
Communications requiring only procedural actions and written reports from liaisons.
Communication has been received from Donna Graham, Legislative Affairs Manager, regarding communications received from the public.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communications and place them on file. Period for public comment relative to items expected to be acted upon this evening. We have one person, Laurie Ortolano. Yes, you did. Sorry. I was looking at the wrong list. Okay. Moving on. Communications requiring final approval. There being no objection, I'd like to suspend the rules to allow for the introduction of a communication received after the agenda was prepared.
Communication has been received from Kim Kleiner, Administrative Services Director, regarding assessing project with Inception Technologies.
I'd like to recognize Director Kleiner.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. I'd like to give a little bit of background, if you don't mind. Back on July 15th of 2020, we brought a proposal to the Finance Committee with Inception technology for the scanning of the property record files. This contract in the amount of $59,638 was being charged against Gopher funds. At that time, we clarified that this was only an estimate, and additional charges would come forward should the records exceed the amount estimated. To date, $52,245 have been invoiced, leaving a balance of $7,392. Over the past year and a half, we have provided boxes of records to Inception, often 100 at a time. They are signed out and they are signed in. These records have been scanned into a DocuWare database. Over the past year and a half, a number of other changes have taken place. During the shutdown caused by COVID, we were slowed significantly on the number of boxes which could be transferred. Ms. Ocha, an employee of the Admin Services Division, became a trainer on the system, and she left the city. 5 other employees within the assessing department familiar with the project also left the city, and 5 new employees were hired. The assessing department has been focusing on the tasks that are statutorily required by the state of New Hampshire, including abatements, exemptions and credits, and a full measure and list revaluation. Currently, we have 28 boxes which are at Inception Technologies in the process of being scanned against the original contract. They also have another 55 boxes which they will need to have put on a new quote, and we will need to bring finance a change order. We also have 98 boxes within the assessing department ready for scanning. These 153 boxes, plus an additional 20 gigabytes of storage, have been quoted for $44,000. The assessing department has funds currently within their existing budget. We are working with Inception to bring the quotes to the Finance Committee. This does not include the public interface that would be required so that the public could access the documents, which is quoted at an additional $7,500. As we stated back in July of 2020 at that Finance Committee meeting, the files uploaded to DocuWare remain in a private status until they are reviewed by the assessing staff. Files will then have to be reviewed, private information redacted, and then saved as public documents. We are currently working to arrange the training of our staff. The current revaluation and preparation for the July tax bills must take priority. This was a huge undertaking for the assessing department, 29,000 plus property record files. And I'm proud of their accomplishments on this project and many others in the midst of many, many challenges. Last week, Chief Vincent and I received several emails on the project from a resident who also copied the state DRA and the National Police Department. Information and misinformation in those emails caused me to reach out to the vendor. During a conversation with Ray Fioli, president of Inception Technologies, he informed me that a city employee named Ms. Ortolano had also reached out to him regarding the project and indicated that she could expedite payment on the remaining project. I informed Mr. Fioli she was not employed by the city, and for many reasons, this was concerning to him. I informed him that I would update the board on the project, especially with the quote going to finance. He indicated that he would be happy to speak with you should you request he do so. Sunday, I received the email from Mr. Fioli that is on your desk this evening. Today, I was contacted by Mr. Fioli again, and he had expressed that his office received 4 calls this morning, which he had not returned. Mr. Fioli and Inception Technologies have been a pleasure to work with and provide the city exceptional service. We certainly hope that that will continue into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kleiner. Alderman O'Brien, could I get a motion for the communication, please?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to accept the communication from Kimberly Kleiner and place it on file.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Alderman Moran.
What are we going to do to make sure our contractors know they're speaking to a city employee?
Well, that's a good question for the legal department, I guess, or for the mayor.
And this is very, very concerning.
Very concerning. Alderman Bolton, Attorney Bolton.
We've discussed that in, today, and at some length. And we're going to recommend some provisions be inserted in contracts, essentially warning our vendors and contractors that they should exercise caution and make sure that if they receive unsolicited phone calls, they should take care not to accept on face value if someone represents themselves as calling from the city of Nashua. That may not mean they are employed by the city of Nashua. And we'll be investigating how best to incorporate such provisions into contracts and purchase orders and other arrangements.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes, you asked to suspend the rules. Normally, we vote on to suspend the rules, and I was wanting to make sure that the process remained intact because we didn't vote on suspending the rules. So do we vote here on suspending the rules? We do not.
No.
Okay,
Like I said,
just
without
want clarification.
objection. No one objected.
Oh,
to
okay,
suspending.
all right, I just wanted to
Okay.
clarify that.
That's fair.
Okay.
Alderman Kathy.
Obviously, I haven't been here since 2020, so I might be unfamiliar with the entire scope of the project, so I apologize if my question is off the mark, but could we as aldermen find out when there's an ETA on when the project or when the files could be accessed? So the public would know when the project is either going to be completed or near completion, or any sort of information about this project with Inception Technologies?
I would have to defer to Director Kleiner.
Certainly, Kim Kleiner. This is a project of huge magnitude. So 29,000 property record files. We're estimated right now at over 1.3 million documents. So you can imagine what the review of those documents is going to put in roughly, to be totally honest, our staff has to work on the revaluation. That is our priority. We are mandated to do it by the BTLA. We would like to see, if it's possible, to get some assistance from other staff, certainly from there is a employee in my office who's familiar with the right to know and with public documents, and she could assist. But these employees need to be trained on the system, and then they need to redact and review the files, and then we need to install the interface. So I would not want to put any type of time limit on it and be unable to meet that deadline.
Okay.
Follow up?
Yes.
Thank you. I forgot my question. Oh, yes. So when you send the boxes away to Inception, are those files then, if someone in the public were to request something that was in those boxes, they are inaccessible whilst they're at Inception Technologies until they come back to the office? Is that correct?
That is correct. That has been the practice because the assessing staff has not completed any training. Having said that, I made it a point on Friday to go through some training, and then again this morning with Mr. Fioli to go through some training. So if worse comes to worse, I will access the documents.
Just one more, if I
Yes.
don't. Thank you. So if I understand it correctly, the plan is once all of the files have been scanned and then looked at by legal or whomever to redact information, then they would become available digitally to the public. Is that correct?
Certainly, our intention was always to make these documents available. So once they're looked at and redacted and marked public by assessing staff, and the interface is installed, it would actually be linked to our city website. That link would bring them into a public version of the DocuWare system.
Okay, great, thank you, I appreciate it.
May I correct something that was just said?
Attorney Bolton.
The legal department will not be going through 29,000 property cards.
Thank you.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't know through you to the legal or to Kim, whoever's best to answer this. This is very concerning. Is this being referred to any other agency for further investigation?
Yes, it has been reported to the National Police Department.
Thank you.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam President. Question for Director Kleiner. You had mentioned that the documents were on a private or in private status. Is that with the city or is that with the company that has done the scanning? Where do those documents sit right now currently?
Great question. They sit on the DocuWare cloud. And when I say in private status, that's a setting on the document that doesn't allow them to be accessed if we did have the public interface. So it's a marking and an indication on the document, and when assessing staff go in and review it, they will remove that flag, which makes it then a public document.
Thank you. Follow up, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. With regard to the letter, I just skimmed it, seeing as I just got it this evening. And as far as it's been sent to the Nashua Police Department, at what point do we get involved here and you know, understanding either both sides of the story or see what's going on? I underlined the word thinking a few times in the letter, which maybe that is not clear by the person that wrote it, or maybe misunderstanding, I don't know. So I am just bringing that up as this is a communication from one side. I don't know what happens from here, but I would like to hear both sides of the story if possible.
Alderman Kelly and then Alderman Cleve.
I just had a clarification in terms of the cost. I know you're going to come to finance, but you had said that there was an additional cost to make them public. That was always part of the plan, or is that now an additional fee that is outside of the scope?
It was always part of the plan. We just received the quote because I asked him, I said, you know, moving in that direction, I don't expect, it's certainly not going to be within this fiscal year. So preparing for next fiscal year, I wanted to have that figure to put in the budget for next fiscal year.
Thank you, Ms. Klein.
Alderman Cleve.
Madam President, I'm going to waive off right at the moment. I know, hard to believe, but yes.
Okay. Motion is to accept the communication, place it on file. Further discussion? Alderman Sullivan, when something is being investigated by the police, we have no role there.
Okay.
Okay, so at this point, we have no role in that.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Motion is to accept and place on file. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donches regarding multi-year contract award, software licensing for benefits administration.
Alderman Cleve.
I motion to accept, place on file, and award a bid to Alight for the implementation of the Alight Benefits Administration Solutions for all insurance plans for the city in an amount not to exceed $480,000, $160,000 a year for 3 years. Funding through Department 113 Benefits Fund 54400 Software, Licensing Benefits Internal Service Fund. It says by roll call, but we don't need that.
No, we don't. Thank you. You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding TIF contract award, environmental permitting for the riverfront.
Alderman Camille?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve a contract for professional engineering services related to the Nashua Downtown Riverfront Implementation Project with Vanass Hengen Bruslin Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $225,365, funding through Department 183 Economic Development, Fund 53107, Architect and Engineering Services, Riverfront TIF Fund, by roll call.
We don't need a roll call. Would you prefer a roll call?
No, right?
Okay.
I'm just reading what was written, Madam President.
I can appreciate that. Okay, you've heard the motion. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Petitions.
Petition's been received for authorization for issuance of building permits for a building on a private road at 19 Roby Street.
There being no objection, I'll accept the petition for authorization for issuance of building permits for a building on a private road, 19 Roby Street, and refer it to the Committee on Infrastructure and the Planning Board. Nominations, appointments, and elections.
Appointments by the mayor. To the Honorable Board of Aldermen, I have this day appointed Matthew Sullivan of 229 Main Street, Nashua, to the Office of Community Development Director for an indefinite term at the pleasure of the mayor, and respectfully request that this appointment be confirmed.
There being no objection, I'll accept the appointment by the mayor as read and refer it to the Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee. Reports of committees. There being no objection, I will declare the report of the January 19th, 2022 Finance Committee be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I will declare the report of the January 24th, 2022 Budget Review Committee be accepted and placed on file. Confirmation of the Board of Aldermen and Mayor's appointments.
There is none.
Unfinished business resolutions.
Second reading of Resolution R-22-002, authorizing the expenditure of $1,810 from the Conservation Fund.
Alderman Kathy.
Yes, Madam President, I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-22002.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Unfinished business ordinances.
None.
New business resolution.
First reading of Resolution R-22-008, establishing an expendable trust fund for 14 Court Street expenses, funded by appropriations.
Additional sponsors? Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Moran, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Clee, Alderman Kelly, Alderman Tebow, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll sign that to the Budget Review Committee.
First reading of Resolution R-22-009, approving the cost items of a collective bargaining agreement between the Nashua Board of Police Commissioners and UFPO Local 645, professional employees of the Nashua Police Department from July 1st of 2022 through June 30th of 2026.
Additional sponsors? Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Sullivan, Alderman Clee, Alderman Moran, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Clemens, Alderwoman Kelly, Alderman Camo, Alderman Govia, Alderman Kathy, Alderman Tebow, Alderwoman Timmons. Wow, okay. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Budget Review Committee.
First reading Resolution R-2210, approving the cost items of sidebar agreements between the Nashua Board of Police Commissioners and the 5 Nashua Police Department unions regarding a police department recruiting incentive.
Additional sponsors, Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Sullivan, Alderman Clee, Alderman Moran, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Clemens, Alderman Camo, Alderman Bouvier, Alderman Kathy, Alderman Tebow, Alderman Timmons, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Budget Review Committee. New business ordinances.
First reading of Ordinance O-22-004, prohibiting a right turn on red from Adventure Way onto Daniel Webster Highway.
Additional sponsors, Alderman Clee, Alderman Moran, Alderman Clemens, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Timmons. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Committee on Infrastructure.
First reading of Ordinance O-22-005, updating the financial standards for the city's welfare guidelines.
Additional sponsors, Alderwoman Clee, Alderman Moran, Alderman Tebow, Alderman Timmons, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee. Now we have period for general public comment. We have one person signed up to speak, Lori Olano.
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. Madam President, I'd like to ask for an extension of time, given
No.
what happened here tonight.
No.
I did not know.
We have a 3-minute time period. That's the end.
I did not know Ms. Kleiner was going to be granted an exception to speak to an item that I could have spoken to as an item being acted on.
You're wasting your time, so just get on with it.
Please don't interrupt me. It's very concerning to me that she could come to the microphone and defame my reputation and make the statement she made about requiring a police investigation and me imposturing a city official, which is completely inaccurate, and not go into non-public session to allow my reputation to stay intact. I had to go into non-public session when I discussed an abatement regarding an assessor whose name was never used because the city wanted to protect the assessor. And it was just about an abatement value. But I come here and I hear the entire public just got a report that I'm under criminal investigation for imposturing a city employee, and it never happened. I wrote an email. I absolutely did make those calls. I want you to all know as well that Tim Cummings has sent me responses to Right to Knows, where he has told me to contact vendors myself, call them. That's how the city is directing me to handle my comments, my concerns. I called Inception Technology 2 months ago. I never hid it. I called them again last week because of information from a Board of Assessors meeting. I wrote an email to the city to tell them I did it. Do you think I would be that forthcoming if I wanted to imposter somebody? If I was being sneaky? The guy's phone number is in my phone. I sent him an email today, and I didn't make 4 phone calls to speak to people. I couldn't reach anyone. They must have tagged it. I did send an email, which she didn't tell you, to Ray, the president, to ask him to look for the property record file for the Arts Center that I'm trying to track. Here you've got Tim Cummings telling me to contact the company in Boston doing the parking surveys and get the data down there yourself. And you're trying to figure out what regulations you're going to put in against citizens contacting vendors? Are you kidding me? I can't tell you how upset I am because I can't even defend myself.
30 seconds.
There are 2 sides to a story. And I had no idea. I've been nothing but forthright with this city and Ms. Kleiner to share these communications. And once again, I come in and I am ambushed in this meeting, completely ambushed. I didn't even have the courtesy of getting the documents you all have. I have no rights in this city. Where are the First Amendment rights for your citizens? Where's my side? Where's the non-public session to protect my reputation? Please start thinking about that.
Remarks by members of the board. I'll start on this side tonight.
There's a couple of people.
Oh, we have a couple of people on, okay. Matthew Guthrow?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Matthew Guthrie, 104 Fawn Lane. Thank you, Madam President, Mayor, and Aldermen. While we can all agree that our Public Works Department does a great job supporting our city, this Friday's past storm demonstrated some inconsistencies where we need to do better. On Friday, February 1st, we experienced a storm in which we can only describe as a wintry mix that canceled school and many other happenings in our city. My concern, in which I brought to the attention of my alderman that day, and now to you today, that it seems ridiculous that we can't have our Public Works vehicles in our neighborhood to plow our neighbors. In my neighborhood particularly, I didn't see a Public Works vehicle until after 4 p.m. that afternoon. Now, while I understand there's a need to clear the main arteries, we here in Nashua pay an extraordinary amount of property taxes not to have our local neighborhood streets cleared and to be essentially shut into our homes. I reached out to the director of our Public Works. I still haven't heard back from her. This seems to be a problem where whenever some of us in the community reach out to the director of Public Works, it seems as if she's not very responsive to us the stakeholders and taxpayers in our community. And I would hope that you would reach out to her on our behalf to see what we can do so that we can avoid this from happening again. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Donna? No, okay. Remarks by members of the board? I'm gonna start on this side. Alderman Tebow? No remarks.
I got a few remarks, so please bear with me. I like to use my remarks to note on positive things like I did a couple weeks ago with the basketball player from South. But today that's not gonna be the case. I'm gonna talk about a few things real quick. Mask mandates. So I'm sure we've all been getting tons of emails on mask mandates. People were trying to want me to think about it differently and maybe overturn this mask mandate, which there's no real way to do that in this meeting today. It wasn't on the agenda. I've been asked to do motions. I'm not going to do that. I don't think that's the right way to try to get that put through. People are saying that the people who want masks are doing it for political theater. And from my angle, it's not. I believe in masks. Whether it's right or wrong, that's what I believe. And I believe, in trying to save people from getting sick and people from dying. And with that being said, no one's telling me to do that or say that. But that being said, going around the city, I went to 3 stores today. No one had masks in the stores, not even the people running the stores. 2 out of the 3 didn't even have a sign. And that's been going on for a while now. People are telling people not to wear masks. So if we have an ordinance that's unenforceable, I'm not sure that it's right to keep it going, but I'm not going to try to put that on the agenda tonight. Number 2, I wanted to mention in schools currently, when there's a sporting event, there is a limit to how many people can watch the sporting event, basketball, wrestling, whatever it may be. I sent an email 2 weeks ago to our AD asking her to look into that and maybe to repeal that because it's not coming from us. Unfortunately, she told the coach, and she never went back to me, that it was the city that was causing that. And if the city was causing that, then when you go to the rec games, there would be a limit. There was more people at the rec games, the biddy, the junior biddy, the bantam, than can go to these high school games. And I look at a senior, and just so you know, I don't have a kid involved in any of this stuff, so it's not based on any of my children. But a kid that's a senior in his last basketball game, might want to invite more than a few people. But you can go see the junior biddy kid and have 50 people there if you want. So I really think, and I hope she's listening, repeal that. It's not coming from the city. And I think it's disingenuous to say that it's coming from us instead of taking ownership that she made that rule. And so I hope she's hearing this. Next, so today I saw on Facebook, and I'm not going to put the person's name out there, but they were telling parents to tell their kids when they go to school to defy the mask mandate. And this person has a following, so people might listen. This person does not have any kids in our public schools. They go to private. So I don't see the reason to cause this kind of insurrection in our school systems. It's wrong. It's putting kids in the middle of something that's not theirs to be in the middle. It's putting teachers in a bad spot. It's dangerous. Again, we put orders in, we put ordinances in, we put resolutions, whatever. People aren't following them. That's a problem. And to tell kids to do that is it's wrong. Whether you believe in the masks or not, it's wrong. Lastly, I'm sorry, I'm taking up for so much time. Teachers and the union, we have to get this contract settled. Union, you have to get back to the table. Board of Education, you have to meet with them and you have to make the concessions. We have to get this contract done. We're losing teachers. 41 teachers are retiring. That's double what normally retires. it's not that we just have 41 teachers that are at the retiring age. I think they're just fed up with the way schools are dealt with today. You cannot manage a classroom like you used to when we were all kids, except for Tyler. You can't manage that. And teachers feel threatened by parents, and they're leaving. And so this contract is just another piece of that. We have to get them back to the table. We have to keep teachers. Young teachers are being paid too low. They can go to other cities and make much more money than here. We don't want to lose good teachers. They're the ones teaching our kids. And, I'll leave it as that. I just want to see us doing more in the city. I want to get us back. We have a good Board of Aldermen, and I want us to get back to, and Alderwomen, and I want to get back to doing good things in the city and having some of this stuff resolved. So, thank you.
Alderman Kathy?
Thank you. I too have a few questions and thoughts. Firstly, I'd like to echo what Derek is saying about teachers feeling threatened. My wife and I have talked to many a teacher who feel disinclined to take cell phones because parents will complain that cell phones have been taken. I have instructed all the teachers to take my kids' phones because I don't care. Do it. Keep them if you want to. I don't really care. So I understand that there's a lot of stress on the teachers for how to manage classrooms, especially with the schools being as large as they are, especially for South and North. And then a question for Derek. Is the BOE the one controlling the mask for the AD, or is it just a separate athletics policy?
It's the BOE.
Thank you. Yeah, so the BOE is the masks. The AD controls things like how many people can show up there. But she does, I will say in her defense, she does meet with the Board of Health. I think what I was told weekly, and so she's getting her direction from the Board of Health. But still, to say it's from the city and people come back to me on it, and again, if the city was doing it, all the other city stuff would be limited
Right.
too.
So separate from the BOE, that's the policy that she's implemented for athletics. Okay.
That's what I believe.
That's
Yes.
good to know. I had two procedural questions that I don't really understand. One would be, and we actually talked about this, when something is not on the agenda, so let's say someone wanted to bring up the mask mandate for reconsideration, can you do that, or does it have to be pre-planned on the agenda? How does that work?
You can make a motion.
Oh, okay, I didn't know
Yeah.
policy procedure-wise what
Yes.
that looked like. And then, if we were to object to something, what does that do? When you say there being no objection, if an alderman objected, what happens?
Then we would have discussion about it.
But if only one alderman objects, it just ultimately goes through anyway, right?
Well, if we take a vote, yeah,
Right,
and
right,
everyone
okay.
else votes in the affirmative, it goes through.
Right,
Yes.
I just want a clarification
Okay.
on how that all works, okay.
That's fair.
I understand some of the public's frustration with DPW. I got a lot of emails, some from the same people, which is fine. I don't mind being contacted. I love to help out the citizens, and I will reach out to whomever I need to. I will say that DPW gets a lot of calls from residents about storms. They do. So if you think that they're not answering, they're talking to someone else on a daily basis. 40, 50, probably sometimes 100 calls a day, multiple days in a row when there's a storm. They just don't have that kind of time. They're not trying to avoid, they're not trying to dismiss. They have a job to do just like the rest of us. And so if you feel like you're not being heard, you can email your alderman. Certainly people have emailed me to reach out, and I did. And I got some great answers from DPW about plowing. I had multiple individuals worry about the sidewalks from BAE down to Bernie and Phil's, just so the public knows. That sidewalk cannot be plowed because it does not meet the recs of the machine that plows sidewalks. And there are not enough people in the DPW to go manually shovel it, because those same people that would be shoveling also drive plow trucks. It's the same crew. We don't have that money, we don't have that manpower, especially in a big storm. I will note that DPW plows hundreds of miles of streets every storm and 50 miles of sidewalks every storm. And they have to continually do that, and they have to cover the Safe Roads Initiative for schools, the main arteries, and then they will get to whatever they can when they can. Lauren has told me multiple times, if a citizen has a problem, reach out, and if they can get to that street, they will. That's their best intention. They don't like to leave citizens without plowed streets. And so we need to kind of give them a little bit of grace, because some storms are a lot of work, a lot of hours, plowing, salting, sanding, whatever they're doing. So just so citizens know, a lot of the streets are being plowed. It might not just be yours, so it's, it might go unseen. So they're doing their best. And then lastly, I think that I would agree with Alderman Sullivan earlier. I think in the future, maybe, I don't really know how this would work, I would appreciate both sides of the story of a situation. I don't know how that would work, but I think it's fair, because I don't have all the facts. I have this letter, and I'm a data guy. I want to hear all the information first. I think that would be more helpful. I don't know how we move forward in the future, how that gets handled, but I think that would be best for all sides involved, that both sides are given ample sort of time to express themselves or talk about their grievance, as it were, and then we can move on from there. I understand that now the situation is with MPD, and so that might not be appropriate, but certainly in the future, I think that would be maybe best. I don't know, but it's something that we could discuss as aldermen. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Dowd.
Two very quick things. One, we had the first reading of R-2209 tonight, and we will be discussing in budget on the 28th. It will come back to the full board on the 8th. We have 30 days, so please review, Budget Committee, review the contract so you have any questions. If you have questions that you'd like to get answered, if you want to reach out to me, I'll make sure the police department gives us an answer before the meeting. And other questions. There will be people from the police department here to answer the questions on the negotiations, but we have 30 days, so. And the other thing and at least in my ward, had someone call about streets not being plowed, and I found out that, I got in touch with Lauren Byers and the director. One of our trucks went off the road into a ditch. It was for Ward 2, so that slowed them down significantly. Thank you.
Alderman Camille.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be brief. I just wanted to echo some of the comments from Alderman Tebow from a moment ago. South had senior night last week for the wrestling team. They had 5 seniors that the wrestling team was sending off, and there were a couple instances where it was we ended up getting them all in, but it was hard to get all the families in to see their senior on senior night because of the capacity limits. So I would love to see that go away as well. It's tough when we see much larger crowds in other places to justify why they can't come into the South Gymnasium. And I'd also love to see, possibly the athletes being allowed to remove them for competition like we can at gyms and in other places. If they have to wear them on the benches and spectators have to wear them, I can understand that, but it's tough to see wrestlers, and I imagine it would be tough to see basketball players trying to run up and down the court in a mask. Regarding the streets, I got a lot of comments and questions from constituents about why the city's not salting, and I tried to explain to them that when the forecast is ice and sleet and freezing rain, salt washes off the road, so it's not that they're being ignored, it's that the storm that we had last week was particularly troublesome. And then lastly, I would like to see in the future, I don't know procedurally whether it would be proper or not, but if we're going to discuss a member of the public, that I think that we should probably move to a non-public session just to respect people's privacy. We've done it before for other people. I would think that that should be something that we consider, especially if we're going to be discussing a member of the public in a negative light. I'd like to see that done in non-public next time. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Alderwoman Kelly.
I don't want to be redundant. Everyone's pretty much said what I was going to say, but I just wanted to echo the comments around DPW and how hard they work during the storms. We've done a lot of work in terms of making sure that they have what they need, and they've implemented things like doing pre-salts, what is it called? It's like salination, whatever you see on the road.
Brine.
They do that.
Brine.
Brine, thank you, that's the word. And I think that's done a tremendous job, but just, some of these storms are ongoing and long, and I live on a 10-person house, cul-de-sac, so I know what it's like to feel like you want to get out there, but we do live in New England, so I appreciate all their hard work.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam President. So I wanted to mention the news that I think most of us know of the departure of Paul Shea from Great American Downtown. I know Paul from actually before he was involved with that, when he was a nurse at Lowell General, and I think he's going back to that career, and I wanted to thank him for all of his service that he's done for Nashua. Nashua Downtown, when I became an alderman in 2008, it was a lot different than what it is now. We didn't have a lot of the festivals and a lot of the activities that went on. There were not nearly as many restaurants or stores as there is now. And a lot of that success has to do directly with Paul Shea, and just the energy and the effort that he put in his creativity and forward thinking. And he did it with a very small budget too. So this city owes him a lot of debt and gratitude, and I just wanted to mention that, tell him thank you for all of the service that he's given this city, and wish him well in the future. Thank you.
Alderman Jettie.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank my fellow aldermen for voting for Resolution 22-002. It's a small amount of money that was allocated to pay for spraying services at Joyce Park. I don't think a lot of people know about Joyce Park, but Salmon Brook, after it crosses under Main Street and under the Marketplace Plaza, comes out behind Hunt Community, crosses All Street, and then makes its way out to the Merrimack River. In that area from All Street, kind of east of Fifield Street, along the brook, on both sides of the brook, all the way to the area that we just sold, at the end of Burke Street, the property that we own used to be part of Improved Machinery, Ingersoll Rand, owned by the city for a short period of time. Now we've sold it, but the brook ends up in a pond right in that area, and then it goes underneath that area out, makes its way to the Merrimack River. So that area is a conservation property under the management of the Conservation Commission, and this summer we had a contract with a student conservation group that went in and reestablished the trail along the brook. There's some stairs that go down from Ingalls Street down to the level of the brook, and makes its way along the brook. It's a very beautiful area. Poison ivy had grown in there, so it was kind of dangerous for people to go there. So part of this project, the Conservation Commission hired a company to spray to get rid of the poison ivy. This amount of money that you approved tonight was, the spraying job ended up being more than they anticipated, so they had to throw in a few extra dollars to do the project. But that area is a jewel in the city that a lot of people don't know about. It was part of Alderman Karen's ward, now part Alderman Kathy's ward. And so you know, once the winter is over, I encourage people to make use of it. It's a beautiful area, right in the middle of the city, and it's one of the gems that the city has. On another note, like all of you, I've received many emails about the mask issue, primarily, and I was saying to my wife, you know, a lot of these emails, there's no address, so I don't, you know, somebody was complaining that their ward alderman had not responded to them, and I said, gee, I don't even know, you know, who this ward alderman might be, because there's no address provided. So, you know, to the public that might be listening, it's much more effective when you write an email to the alderman if you include your address, so we know, you know, where you live. You know, are you part of our ward or not? And I know it's probably parochial of me to say this, but I pay more attention to emails I receive from people in my ward. I don't know if other people feel the same way, but so just, you know, a word to, a recommendation to people, if you want your email to have more of an impact, you know, tell us who you are and where you live, and so that, you know, we can respond appropriately. Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
Well, just to echo what Alderman Jettie said, I am elected as a ward alderman, so I do attend to the needs of my constituents, and I generally will refer them to their ward alderman if their positions or needs for representation can also be served by that advocate. So I also receive a couple of emails. I had one over the weekend where a person emailed me just from a Hotmail account, and I said, I need your name and your number and your address and all that kind of stuff, just so that I can put this into context. And they're like, well, the fact that I wrote an email should suggest to you that it matters enough to me too. And I was like, okay, but I still don't know who you are. And the response was basically, you're an idiot. So I was like, okay, well, that's been said before. But at the same time, I don't have any context for it. As a ward alderman, I will put the needs of my constituents first when I can figure out who they are. And I trust the at-large alderman to look at the whole city perspective. And I think if people have strong opinions about issues and maybe from other places like Hollis, Merrimack, or whatever, and they come to Nashua and they feel a sense of entitlement to be here, that's fair. We'd like to know that we have visitors who have strong opinions, but they also have their own elected officials and they have statewide officials. So if you give us information, we may not necessarily 100% agree with you, but we can at least send you in the right direction so that you can find some satisfaction. With regards to the comments about making motions in meetings, and I understand we can essentially suspend the rules or introduce things when we want to, but I would just point out that if we don't put it on the agenda, the public doesn't know that it's going to be on the agenda. We inadvertently may rob people of the opportunity to provide public comment on the issue. So typically we are careful about how we expedite things when there's an emergency versus when there is not necessarily a life-threatening emergency or risk to people, making sure that both sides have the opportunity to know what's going to be discussed and have the opportunity to present their opinions. So that's just something I wanted to make note of. I had a question for Attorney Bolton regarding the non-public sessions. As I understood it, the communication we received was an alert that a vendor was expressing this concern. I did not get elected as a judge, jury, or whatever, so it was just a communication to the effect of the vendor who identified himself was reporting that a member of the public had communicated with them. If we take that in a non-public session in order to more fairly vet it, can we invite the member of the public that's participating? Do we have to invite the other member of the public who's communicating with us? Do we have to host like a fight? Like, how does that work?
Duel.
You may do those things, you are not required to do those things.
Okay, so I have questions about changing policies or procedures. It just doesn't seem like things we happen to have every day. I didn't see, as was noted, I think by Alderman Kathy, I didn't see a smoking gun that now a crime was documented in our public records It's just a concern that was raised by a vendor that we should leave to the police to investigate so that they can figure out what both sides are, as is their role. With reference to that, the mask mandate being unenforceable, I did speak to Deputy Rourke about that. We've had some public comment and some public communications where individuals document places that they go to that don't enforce the mask mandate. And I would just point out that the sign is part of the ordinance, that a business is required to put the sign on, but we didn't make the businesses responsible for enforcing the ordinance. If a member of the public is concerned, they can call the police will respond, they will document their response, and they'll investigate the situation and intervene if necessary. I would also point out, though, they have reasonable expectations for the police, because we can report fireworks as a city ordinance, but by the time anybody gets on the scene, the fireworks have already flown into the air. We can report loud vehicles as a breach of the city's noise ordinance, but those are difficult to investigate. Typically, repeat offenders or obvious issues can be examined. That's a reasonable approach for the expectation for the police to have. But when it comes to the masking ordinance, if people are coming in and out and the individual who's committing the offense is changing regularly, then we can't expect the police to be finding or citing every single person who is violating the mask mandate. I think we intentionally left it as an ordinance that was not specifically defined as a fine or had a process for warnings, because it's an ordinance written for people who respect the law and respect the city of Nashua. People who don't, won't. And there are some battles that we can fight, and there's some battles that we will be more successful on by relying on people's good ethics and good behavior. I did also want to ask Alderman Tebow. He said that there were weekly meetings with the Board of Health to consult with regarding health care advice. Since the Board of Health meets monthly, did you mean the Department of Health?
What I was told by the coach that she meets with our personal one once a week. Now, I don't know if it's a personal meeting. She calls calls Director Bagley. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
That's obviously being told.
So the Board of Health as an entity is the 3 appointed doctors that I think there's actually a meeting tomorrow.
Probably means just Director Bagley, if I had to
Okay,
guess.
then that's the department. I just wanted to make sure, because the doctors are very careful about not meeting collectively unless it's a formal meeting capacity. They won't even talk to each other over email. And then finally, with regards to snow plowing, clearing streets, the state of New Hampshire doesn't require any private citizens or entities to clear sidewalks, which is a problem, particularly in Ward 4, where there's a lot of sidewalks and a lot of individuals who have trouble navigating sidewalks and may have difficulty clearing their snow. So I host a contest called Golden Shovel. I believe Alderman Klee has a variant of it as well, where people in Ward 4 are encouraged to take pictures of themselves shoveling the sidewalk in front of their street, and to also clear out any fire hydrants that may be nearby. Each picture that they take of themselves doing this, one per storm, gets counted towards a score at the end of the snow season, and then the public votes on who receives a bounty for it. So it's called the Golden Shovel Competition. It's a quarter of my aldermanic stipend. It encourages people to interact with each other, to encourage each other to clear and snowplow and be civically minded. And it's not a good solution, but it's not the worst solution. So I just wanted to put it out there, and anybody in Ward 4 who's interested in participating in the Golden Shovel, you can contact me, or you can check out the group Ward 4 Word, which is community-based for people in Ward 4. Thank you.
Alderman Klee? Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Moran first.
I guess I'll say something to extend the meeting as long as possible. I just wanted to make a general comment, essentially regarding my distinguished colleague from Ward 8. There's always going to be provocateurs on Facebook. They don't generally represent the majority of the people in Nashville or anywhere else. And quite frankly, in my profession as a therapist, I see a lot of very insecure people make very provocative statements when they don't get their way. And we can't allow ourselves to be dragged down into that. That's why I try to avoid it.
Alderman Klee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I'd like to say I'm quite excited that the Personnel Committee will be interviewing Mr. Sullivan. He's been my go-to person since Sarah left, when I have many questions on zoning and planning and so on, and he's given me quite the education, and I truly appreciate that. So I look forward to him taking on that role. I'd also like to make comment about the emails that we've gotten from the mask mandate. While we've gotten a lot, we've also gotten a lot from a single person who has forwarded many emails, which makes it a little bit more difficult to, especially if they don't have the addresses and so on. So I think individuals should be sending their own emails rather than seeing that same person's name coming up that's been forwarding emails. It gives more validity to it and so on. And relative to Public Works, I think they've been doing a great job. Yes, I get the same comments about my street hasn't been done, or a sidewalk hasn't been taken care of and so on. And today, I'm driving down Manchester Street on my way to an 8 o'clock meeting this morning. I did see some kids trying to avoid the sidewalks on Manchester Street because they were still a little slippery and icy, but there's limitations that our public works people have. They're doing the best job that they possibly can, and they do get out there, especially these heavy. And for citizens, if they go onto Public Works, they can see which sidewalks do in fact get plowed, what are part of the sidewalks that are plowed. Most of them are like right around schools and so on, for the safety of the children that are walking. I can tell you in French Hill, we have, pardon my language here, but sidewalks from hell, where we have people's steps that go into the sidewalks. We have fire hydrants. So they can't use the snow plows type thing. They can't get in there. So they have to do them by hand. And by the time they can get to them, most of the time they're icy and so on. So I do ask people to be patient. And if you are able-bodied and you do have a sidewalk in front of you, consider helping out and doing it. There is no requirement. I'm not telling anybody to do it, but if you're able-bodied and you can do it, perhaps you could just extend, at least in front of your sidewalk, that's that much less and a little bit safer for the children. And lastly, I'd like to thank my wonderful Ward 3. They have been sending me dinners and extending some very kind words and so on for some of the things that I've been going through. And you all may think you have the best ward, but you don't. It's Ward 3, so just want to put it out there.
Mine isn't designed to work.
Thank you so much.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to speak about just the form and the flow of the meeting tonight. Being new, and I still understand that I'm learning a lot, and I still consider myself very much an outsider to the rules and how we do things and how we build agendas. I think a common misconception in life is that people like surprise parties. Personally, I don't like surprise parties, especially how they happen sometimes. Being an outsider, as I still feel as though I am, there seems to be an us versus them tone to what happened. And I understand that there are rules and procedures that I will learn about. But I was just wondering, and I would like to request, that should we be faced with something like that again, that we handle it differently. That's all my ask. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I'd like to thank Alderman Clemens mentioning Paul Shea. I'll tell you something. That guy, I think when he was interviewed for the job or in that particular process, I remember our old friend Alderman McCarthy saying he was out throwing snowballs and stuff like that. They said, here's the perfect guy for the job. He's done well, and thank you for mentioning him. Although I look forward to working with him as a liaison on the Board of Public Works Committee. So I think he'll fit in nicely there too. The other thing I'd just like to mention is like the BPW. I think they did a pretty good job. I mean, the people got to understand, coming from the fire department, people used to say, geez, what the heck? We used to look at it and say, well, right now we have too many firemen then the building catches fire and we don't have enough. Same thing is true with snowfall. We never ask in the summer how much rain we're gonna get, we just wanna know if it rains. But unfortunately, in the wintertime, we make meteorologists put how many inches it is. So BPW, you take the ice, I mean, anybody wants to complain, come look at my driveway, I didn't even bother touching it, I can't, you know. But I think they did a good job, the best that they can, and the long hours, and you gotta take into account, there are DOT standards that can only be in the truck so long, so you gotta take the whole mix together. But they do get to it and they do a fair job. The last thing, Madam President, if I may, just a little bit of house cleaning. I see there is issues coming up before the Infrastructure Committee. We're very happy to have them. But when it comes to different type of traffic, stop signs, right turns, left turns, all those different things, I consider it the responsibility of the author of the legislation to contact engineering. Come see me, I'll help you direct you to the right thing, but do the homework so we can get it started. So when the board hits this, you know, comes to the board, we know, you know, already we've read the reports and everything else. Case in point, the stop sign might sound good to one particular person, but then there's 30 people in the neighborhood that hate it. So to avoid all that, this is why we do that. So if you could do that, and if there's any questions in the future, please come see me, we'll help you direct through it. Thank you.
Thank you. I too would like to take a moment to thank Paul Shea for the vibrancy he's brought to our downtown. Paul is, he's a dynamic person. He did a really good job downtown, bringing in all kinds of different activities for people. I really think he did a great job for us. But I'm also happy for him and for everyone else that he's going into the field that he's been trained in, and that's being a nurse. And don't we need nurses now more than ever? So, you know, it's kind of bittersweet. We're losing him, but we're not really losing him. He's going off to do a job that we all need at some point. So, committee announcements.
As the president of the board has said, infrastructure is coming up. This will be our first one of the year, so I'm going to have to talk to the administrative assistant. We'll get the communication out to you, but generally it's the week of the 21st of the month, correct? So we'll get that, and so therefore those people that got stuff on the agenda, if they could do that homework, that'd be perfect. Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
There's a meeting of the Human Affairs Committee on Thursday, February 17th. Normally it's on Mondays, but that would have been Valentine's Day, and having a Human Affairs Committee on Valentine's Day, a little too on the nose, so we moved it.
Alderman Kathy.
I just had a response to Alderman O'Brien.
Sure.
Lauren originally reached out to me regarding that Adventure Way right turn, and I immediately requested information of a traffic study before I would sponsor the legislation. And she was kind enough to send that information to me, and so I'll be forwarding that to the Infrastructure Committee so you guys can take a look at it. And
No. That would be a violation of the law. Bring it to the meeting, pass it out, discuss it at the meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderwoman Kelly?
I actually was just going to put Alderman Dowd in the hot seat and ask when he might have our budget meetings for the 2023 budget? Is that what we're going into?
FY23, yes. I had a discussion with the mayor. The mayor is going to be putting out the guidance for the different departments soon. And that sort of kicks off the timing of the meetings. So I've already talked to Donna. We have all the meetings set. We just have to plug in dates. And we're gonna do that as soon as we know where we're at with the departments. And there'll be more coming out. I'll give you more information about the budget season on the 28th, the regular budget meeting.
Thank you, Alderman Dowd.
No other committees?
The Board of Health is meeting tomorrow at 12:30 via Zoom. The link is on the website.
Thank you. Non-public session? There is none?
None.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion that the February 8, 2022 meeting of the Board of Aldermen be adjourned by boisterous verbal confirmation.
Motion is to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:49 PM. Thank you, everyone.